Hey everybody, welcome back to Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com. And here on the YouTube channel, and this time out, we're going to do an update on the SSL Origin. It's been about 2 years now, just shy of 2 years that I've had this console. I did a review after 6 months. And since that time, guys ask me questions, you write me emails and stuff, asking questions, asking me how it's holding up. And I thought this would be a good opportunity as I'm between projects right now to go ahead and to give you just kind of an update on having used this Origin now for almost 2 years. What do I think of it? Have my opinions changed? And a little story time here with Uncle Dave. So before we get started, by the way, YouTube Analytics tells me that 70% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, which is crazy to me. So do me a favor, if you're one of those people and you're not subscribed, it really helps me. And if you get anything out of this channel, and we are so unique what we're doing here compared to anybody else on YouTube when it comes to analog and hybrid and all that stuff, if I've helped you in any way, or if my videos have helped you in any way, please do me a huge favor, just hit the subscribe button. It really does help. It so helps me, and it helps get the word out to more people that might be interested in this stuff. So if you're one of those 70%, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell, blah, blah, blah. Also go out to mixingmusicanalog.com if you want to learn more about what I do for a living when it comes to mixing. So go check that out. Okay, so let's talk. I got some notes here. Now, I did a video, as I said, 6-month review. You can go watch the video. I'll put an image up on the screen here so you can see it, and a link in the description box. So go check out that video where I talked about the console. I also did another video separate from that, which where I actually took the iPhone because people are asking me about the layout and the quality of the pots and the switches and the build quality. And I kind of came up close and personal and showed you the whole desk. Again, you can check out that video as well if you want to know about the build quality. So let's talk a little bit about this. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'll give you kind of a little rundown here of what we're talking about. So this console is the SSL Origin 32. We'll talk about the 16 in a little bit. I purchased this console in June of 2021. At the time, this console cost me $49,500, and I bought it from Sweetwater. No, this is not a sponsored video. I guess I got to say that at the beginning. It's not a sponsored video. SSL didn't give me a console. Sweetwater didn't give me a console. Nobody gave me a console. Dave paid full price for his console, just like you would. And at the time, it was $49,500. And through Sweetwater, I worked with a third-party company to finance it. And that's how I purchased it, along with some of my initial hardware and cabling and such. So it's not a sponsored video, okay? Nothing here, by the way, is sponsored. Nothing. Because SSL does not give me anything. And by the way, I've tried to work with SSL when I first bought the console. Not that I wanted something for free. After I actually paid for it, I tried to work with them. They really have no interest in working with me at all, which is surprising, seeing as I'm the only one on YouTube outside of Chris Lord Algae talking about this SSL Origin. So I don't understand it. They're not a company that's willing to work with YouTube creators, at least not this YouTube creator. Hey, so be it. I still love their product. Anyway, this is a 32 channel long fader, 32 short fader. This is 64 fader inline console. We have 32 E-Series, Black Series EQs. We have 32 preamps that have the two preamp kind of circuits. We have the pure drive, which is more of the harmonic distortion, a little bit more color, a little bit of compression, which is what I use most of the time, as well as a transparent, more clean preamp as well. It has a full master section, has 16 stereo, 8 stereo group channels here, buses here as well, has direct outs on every single channel, so you can print stuff back in if you'd like. All of the connections on the console on the front that you don't see are all D-sub connections. Again, there's videos on all of this showing us how we installed it, the whole thing, but that's kind of what it is. Overall dimensions are 72 inches by 43 inches. So it looks, on camera, I know it looks big and stuff, but it's not as large as the old E and G series consoles from the 80s. It's not the aircraft carrier kind. This is a little bit more of a compact footprint. From a length point of view, as well as a depth point of view, one of the reasons why the depth point of view depth is shorter here than some of the older ones is because this does not have dynamics in this console. This only has EQ. It doesn't have the dynamic gate section like you would see in the vintage consoles. So that's why it's a little bit shorter. The weight of this thing is right around 400 pounds. It took 4 people to put it into this studio. And that's kind of an overview. Again, you can go watch all the videos. So now, having used this, depending on when you're watching this, I'm recording this at the beginning of April 2023, and I bought it in June of 2021. So it's about 2 years. This gets used, when you talk about use, it's in a private studio. This is not a commercial facility. Nobody touches this console but me. I don't rent it out. Producers don't come in here. So in other words, it's babied in that I'm very, careful with my stuff, and it's not abused in any way, shape, or form. It gets used about 4 days a week, roughly something, 3 to 4, 4 days, 5 days. It's about on average about 4. Some days it gets used 3 days a week. Some weeks it gets used 5 or 6 days a week, but the average is about 4. Anywhere from 4 to 7 hours a day is roughly what it gets used, okay? So it's not like a commercial room where it's being used 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. When I'm not using it, it gets covered with just a light cover for it to keep the dust and stuff all off of it. And I do power it down every single night when I'm not using it. Again, it's not like the old vintage style desks where you need a special machine room or air conditioning or with massive racks of power supplies. None of that applies to this console or any of the other modern style consoles. And so that's kind of an overview. Now, some of the things that people ask a lot about, so I'll just address it here. People ask about the electric bill. People have left comments on videos telling me that I'm crazy for buying this console or any console because the electric bill is crazy. Again, these are people who are thinking about the old vintage style consoles. They have no experience with the modern ones, so they're a little misinformed. This console takes about as much electricity as a desktop computer that never shuts off. Because this is in my private studio as part of my house, it's all one electric bill. I don't have a separate electric service. And I'll say to you with all honesty, with the console and the gear, for the amount of use that I use this, as I said, 4 days a week, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, I've seen a little increase in my electric bill, as part of the household electric, but again, it's minimal. It's not like the old consoles like I talked about. I know a person that has a vintage SSL that has the old power supplies and stuff, although I know now you can upgrade them to more efficient ones, but their electric bill's like $1,000 a month because they have to run special air conditioning and all of that stuff. Now, again, I know you can modify some of the older stuff and retrofit them with newer, more efficient stuff. But back in those days, back in the 80s and the 90s, it was very expensive from an electric point of view to run one of these things. This is not that at all. So don't be worried about that if you're in the market for a console. Any modern style by any manufacturer, you don't have to worry about the electric bill being, crazy. And yes, you can turn them on and off every day and they're fine. So people ask me about that. Again, after 2 years worth of use, people ask me about the condition of the faders and the pots and stuff. And again, I will say, like I said in my 6-month video, the pots are not scratchy, the faders, everything works the way it did when it was new. Now, again, it's only just about 2 years old. So, again, after 4 years, am I gonna have some scratchy pots and maybe some things that need to be maintained? Yeah, probably, I'm sure of that. But right now, I don't have that. Everything still feels as good as it did when I first bought it. Nothing's loose and nothing's, loosened up or feels cheap in any single way. It still feels solid to me, and I haven't had a single issue with it yet. Knock on wood. I'm sure one day I will. I think its standard came with a 2-year warranty from Sweetwater, and I think there are packages that you can purchase from SSL if you want an extended warranty. I haven't done that. I just have the standard 2-year warranty, so it's about to go out of warranty. I'll let you know, and when I have my first problem, I'll document it and let you know. It is mechanical, right? And you're turning stuff, and it is electronics, and sooner or later something's going to go wrong with it. But I'm hoping to get, at least 4 years out of it before I start having any issues. But we'll see. Seeing as I took a 4-year loan on it, once it's paid for, if I have to do a little bit of maintenance, I'm okay with it. But again, it's held up very well. It is held up very well. People have made some comments about this particular console because unlike the older SSLs, the vintage ones again, where they were made all in the UK, these consoles all the parts are made in China. At least SSL's been very open and transparent about that. I knew that before I bought it. They don't hide that fact. And some people have remarked that because it's made in China, it's cheap and the quality's not as good as some of the older stuff that's made in the UK. Again, I've worked on an old SSL many, many years ago in a studio, and I never owned one, and I never spent enough time with one to know whether or not that's an issue. I mean, again, if it's cheaper than what it used to be because it's made in China, I don't, like I just said, I don't touch this thing. If it doesn't feel cheap to me, I don't know. Yes, that is one of the ways that they were able to sell this console at such an affordable, as far as console goes, and we'll talk about that in a minute, price. But, you know, again, if this was all built in the UK, the way the old style consoles would have been, it probably would have been 30% more in cost. You know, the way you could get this for $49,000, or now they're about $55,000 because of inflation and whatnot in the country. But $50,000 roughly, you know, if this was built all in the UK, it probably would have been 80 grand. I don't know. So again, just because it's made in China, and I know it's all the parts are made in China, but I'm told it's all assembled in the UK factory at Solid State Logic. Again, I don't experience any quality issues because of that. So let's just say that. People still ask me to this day, you know, and again, I understand the question and I've answered it so many times. You know, does it really sound better than using SSL channel strip plugins? How much better is it really? And all of that stuff. And as I said in those videos, there's not even a comparison in my mind. Now, again, I'll say this a million times, but again, you might be new here. I'm fortunate enough, based on what I do with education and training and stuff, that I have an analog rig, and then sitting right off camera over there, I have an all-in-the-box rig. And so I'm very fortunate that I work on both workflows every week. Between all the YouTube videos I do for Home Recording Made Easy and my training courses and my mixing membership websites, I mix a lot with plugins in the box, and have for years. And then I mix almost as much with analog gear in the console. And I love channel strips, and I mix with SSL channel strips, API channel strips, Neve channel strips, all kinds of plugins. And there really isn't a comparison in the sounds. They're completely different sounds. And the more I am able to work on both, the more I prefer this sound, certainly. And to me, there's a sound that comes out of this console that you don't get from plugins. And that's just my honest opinion, is the truth. I honestly thought when I first bought the console that there wouldn't be that much of a difference. I thought it would be way closer than it actually is. And so I know there's lots of folks on YouTube, you know, especially, you know, famous engineers, you know, like the Andrew Sheps and the Michael Browers of the world, who, by the way, are two of my heroes. They're freaking, you know, I don't even put my name in the same sentence with those two people, you know, but, you know, those are two examples of folks that will tell you it sounds just like their old stuff. There's no difference in sound. I don't, you know, those guys, I'll just take them at their word, because they're so much better than I am, I'm sure. And they could probably do things with plugins that I can't do, but I'll tell you what, I don't know what they're hearing, because there is such a remarkable difference in fidelity in audio. I can't believe how much of a difference there is, but I don't know. I guess they are able to get it so it sounds identical to their old consoles. I haven't been able to do that, and I've done lots of testing, mixing back and forth between analog and digital. There is no comparison, in my opinion. Now, again, you know, disclaimer, you can get awesome mixes with plugins. You can, if you know what you're doing. It's more about your chops and your skills than it is the gear, for sure. But there is a massive difference. So for people that are, you know, that have asked me, they're in the market to buy a console, and they're saying, how much better is it really, Dave? And they kind of ask me privately, because they think, you know, maybe they don't know me very well, and they think, you know, what you're saying on camera, is that really true, Dave? Tell me, you know, really, Dave, you know, they kind of elbow me in, you know, on the side. Really, Dave, what's the truth? I'm telling you the truth. There is such a massive sonic difference, you know, to me. That is the truth. That's just one guy's opinion. So again, you take that for what it's worth if you really want to know. What I tell you here on camera is exactly what I would tell you privately if nobody was listening or watching. So, you know, that's just my feeling. Now, as far as, you know, again, talk a little bit about, again, if you're shopping for a console, you do a lot of your research, but, you know, there are things that, again, we're talking about price point. You know, people have commented too about this console and consoles in this price bracket, which there aren't many, by the way, not with the same amount of features this one has. Yes, it doesn't have dynamics, right? It doesn't have that, I said that. Like, you know, some of the more expensive ones. It doesn't have automation, no flying faders, you know, none of that nice stuff. It doesn't have any kind of recall assist package or software, so everything is recallable. Doesn't have any of that. Doesn't have any of that. So for, you know, it's truly kind of stripped down, bare bones, basic inline console. That's what you get at the $50,000 mark, no matter who the manufacturer is. I always said, would it be nice to have flying faders with recall automation? Of course. Would it be nice to have some recall assist to help you with all the pots so you know where the pots left off and all of that? Of course it would be great. That would be awesome. However, if you want a console with those kinds of features, whether it's from SSL or Neve or API or, you know, Trident, you're looking at least $100,000 and up to get something with 32 long, 32 shorts. With all of that stuff, you're looking well over 100 grand. Because I looked, believe me, I know. There is no console that I'm aware of that has all that in it for anywhere near this price point. So you have to be aware of that. But I've done other videos and talked about not having recall, you know, how do I work around that? I've done other videos about automation and how you can work around that as well. But just keep that in mind. Again, if you're shopping for a console, you know, just keep that all in mind. So a couple of things I wish this thing did have outside of those two big ticket items, because like I said, you're not going to get that at this price bracket. But a couple of things would have been nice, and I said this in my original 6-month review, and I'll say it again. This console does not have insert point. It has insert points on the group channels on the buses, right? You can insert compressors, EQs, whatever, but it doesn't have an insert bypass switch at the desk like it does on every individual channel. I hate that. So if I put, let's say, a compressor and an EQ on the first bus here, let's say my drums, and I want to do a quick AB with and without it, on every individual channel, I can do that at the touch of a button. You can't do that here. I hate that. So you have to go over to the rack and bypass everything, and then you're out of the sweet spot. It's not a good way to listen to what's really going on. That's terrible, and I really wish they would have done that, but they didn't. The other thing that you cannot do on this console is on the master bus here, you do have an insert point, so you can insert, you know, like an EQ or, you know, the SSL Fusion or whatever, color box on your master bus. However, the insert point is before the bus compressor. So in other words, if you wanted to put, and I had for a long time and still do, the SSL Fusion on my master bus. Well, the SSL Fusion is before the bus compressor. You can't reverse the order. You can't make it so it hits the compressor, then hits the SSL Fusion if you wanted. So that you can't do. Now, if you didn't want to use the SSL console bus compressor and you wanted to like buy one for a 500 rack or use a different compressor and use it and then you could reverse the order in the patch bay. But the way it sits, you can't do that. And I asked SSL about modifying that and they say it's not an easy mod to do. That's another thing that I really wish this had. I hate the fact that I can't reverse that. I mean, again, it's not a showstopper, but it is something that can't be done. Outside of that, the only other thing I wish, again, would have been nice to have, and would go back to automation for a second. Because people said, well, you know, they've asked me about a couple of third-party retrofits that you can do to this console, or really any analog console, to make automation done so it's post all your processing, right? So today, if you're doing automation in the box, that comes out, the automation moves happen before it hits the preamp, EQ, and any outboard compressor, which is not ideal. And again, I've talked about that in another video. There are a couple of third-party solutions if you're someone who doesn't care so much about the recall assist, but really would like to have automation post-processing. Here's a couple of ways, a couple of third-party solutions for you that are not terribly expensive considering what the console costs. The first one is by a company that I use with their other products. Is called Wes Audio, and they make a product called the NG Level. And the NG Level is a 1U rack space piece of gear that sits between, after it comes out of the console, the signal then routes to the NG Level where you do all your automation in their proprietary plugin, and it's all recallable and 100%, savable, and then it goes to your print track. So your automation would be done after it comes out of the console, before it goes back into the DAW. Now they have, I think the NG level is a 16 channel. So I think it's like $2,000 US for 16 channels of automation. I think you can daisy chain up to 3 or 4 of those units together. So for me, if I wanted to put 32 channels of automation, I would need 2 of those units kind of connected with a USB or FireWire, or Thunderbolt, or however they do it. And for two spaces in my rack, I can have 32 channels of automation that I can use their plugin that's savable to the session. It's not done with your faders here. It's done with a DAW controller, like a fader port, or the SSL, UFA. It's done with one of those controllers. It doesn't turn this fader into flying fader or anything like that. That's, again, it's not perfect, but that's one workaround. If you really want to have your automation post-processing, you could do that. The other company that makes something that could be retrofitted to most analog consoles is a company called FaderMate. They're out of the UK, and they sell where you can actually replace the fader. The actual fader comes out, and their fader goes in and you can actually replace the 32 faders. And then again, it comes with a 1U, some kind of a piece of gear, machine box, where now these turn all into flying faders, and you can write automation. I'm not sure how that kind of works up with the DAW. But that's another, if you really wanted flying faders and you want to do all the automation right here and not on a surface controller or a little fader port type of a deal, you can do that. 32 faders, when I checked with FaderMate, was a little over $6,000 US to do that. So you basically would have to pop your faders out, pop their faders in. They say the install's kind of easy. I looked into that, but honestly, it looks like a great idea. I've looked on YouTube to try to find some information about it. There's almost nothing except by FaderMate. The FaderMate website is kind of dated and not very informative. I did try reaching out to the company. They did get back to me quite quickly, but they almost wanted to brush me off. I wasn't really thrilled with, I reached out to them. Not that I wanted something for free, but I did tell them about the channel. I'd like to buy this and install it, and it'd be great if we had some videos on YouTube on how this stuff goes in. They have no interest in that whatsoever. I asked them for can you give me a couple of customers that actually bought your product so I could talk to them about the install process and how's the quality of the stuff. And they, again, they gave me one manufacturer, but you could tell they really weren't interested in talking to me. They actually left kind of a sour taste in my mouth. And so I'm not saying that they're not a great company, they don't have a great product, but based on their website, based on the lack of information and the communication, I would be reluctant to use their product unless I really spoke to someone that put it in themselves and had some real world experience. But again, you may want to check them out. Again, I'll leave the link in the description box for you, FaderMate. I probably would be more apt to go with Wes Audio because I have their products. Wes Audio, I've communicated with them before, and it was a way different kind of an experience than with this company in the UK. So I probably would, maybe one day I'll check out the NG level, I don't know. But that's a couple of ways you can get around automation if you don't wanna deal with it the way I deal with it. Again, you can go watch some of my other videos. So now people have asked me about the Origin 16, because about 6 months ago, they put out the Origin 16, which is basically half the consoles. From the master section over here, they kind of just cut off this section of the desk, and it has all the same features. Everything is exactly the same, just with only half of the desk. And that one retails for right around 40 grand, I think, as I'm sitting here recording this video. About 15,000 less than this. And I'm sure that's a great product as well. People have asked me, it wasn't out when I bought my 32. People have asked me, would you have bought the 16 over the 32 if that was available at the time? And I don't think so, because I like having 32 EQs. I like having 32 long faders. I use all 32 all the time. Typically I'm using between 32 and about 40 channels, 48 faders. And on the Origin, just so you know, if you don't know, you have a short fader and a long fader, short fader, long fader, but you only have one EQ, and it can be signed to either one, not both at the same time, obviously. And the same thing with the preamp. The preamp can come to the short fader or the long fader. So if you only had the 16 you're only going to get 16 EQs, you're only going to get 16 preamps, and you'll have to do more comping and stuff in the box. Not that that's a big deal, but for $15,000 difference between the two products, at least that's what it is right now. By the time you see this video, there could be a bigger or smaller gap, I don't know. But for $15,000, I want the full thing. If I'm gonna spend that much money, I want it to have 32 EQs, 32 preamps, 32 long faders. So, but the 16 might work. For a lot of you who maybe even don't have the physical space, the 16 is only gonna be the size of like a computer desk, really. So really compact, and it'll probably only weigh half of the weight of this thing as well, which is always nice. So that's kind of my overall, 2-year experience with this. Again, I'm not dissatisfied with it at all. I haven't had any issues with it. My electric bill is not going up through the roof like some people think it may have. It sounds fantastic. And again, the more I've worked with it, the more I appreciate the sound. The more that I feel like it is so different than working in the box. It's not even funny. And again, the workflow, just having your hands on this, and it's so much different. I really enjoy it. And yeah, I recommend it to anyone that's looking. Again, I haven't had experience with Trident or with API or with Neve. I've never really worked on those. So I know all of those companies now make a desk somewhere in this price bracket. Again, you go check more or less of your, features. I know one desk that's very almost one-to-one is the Trident makes a console that, and I forget some of the model numbers, you'll have to go look, but I have a good friend that owns a studio in LA. He has a Trident, and we've talked about the features between his Trident and my Origin, and they're almost identical as far as the amount of features and faders and all of that. And again, I think that console is in the same price bracket. It's around that $45,000, $50,000 mark. And there's some upgrades you can do to that as well that he has done. So that's another one, a company that makes something that's similar to this. But yeah, I love my Origin, and I would recommend it to anyone. It's, if you want that SSL sound, this is it. And I just love it. So, maybe I'll do a 3-year review, or if I ever have a problem, I will certainly document it and let you guys know. And again, I'm only making these videos for people that either are looking at this console or are looking at a console, and there are a bunch of you that are. I'm really surprised how many of you have reached out to me. Either you just bought your console, or you're just about to pull the trigger, or you're deciding between a couple, and this is one of the ones you're looking at and you're asking questions. And that's why I'm trying to do these for you every so often. So again, if you're someone who has questions about this particular desk or, consoles in general, because you're in the market or you're just curious, again, leave comments below. I'd be glad to answer anything I can and just give you my honest opinion and my honest experience. And again, I don't get anything whether you buy this or not. I can't speak to other brands because I've never really used them, except my buddy Charlie that has a Trident speaks very highly of that. And so I trust him that if he said it's an awesome console and he's had it about, I want to say he's had it 5 or 6 years. If he says it's awesome, I would think that's probably an awesome console as well. You can check that out. So anyway, thanks so much for watching this video, my 2-year review on the Origin. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'll be glad to get back to you. And then once again, if you're part of that 70% that has not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help. And also, depending on when you're watching this video, in 2023, we have released 2 hybrid mixing courses where you see me mix a real song in real time from start to finish using the SSL, all the gear. They're about 4 to 5 hours in length. We have one mixing pop, and I've also put one out in the summer of 2023, again, depending on when you're watching this video, mixing acoustic rock. Check the link in the description box below if you want to see a real course on how you mix in this workflow. And also too, even if you don't have hardware and you're using all plugins, in both of those courses, I talk you through how you can emulate this workflow using plugins in the box. So for my plugin folks, you can get you can get pretty close to the workflow. Will the sound be identical? No, but that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not as good. It just means it's different, and you'll still learn a lot from those mixing courses. So check out the hybrid mixing courses. And until the next video, I've been Dave with Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching me today, and I'll see you guys soon.